Everybody on this very beautiful day. Today we have the introduction of the new lab assignment, the last assignment number 4. Will not take that long, and after that we have the guest lecture by Abdullah Kara on the development of the valuation model and application of the valuation model. And he is so nice to show the example of the Netherlands. But let's first start with the introduction of the lab assignment. And let me share the screen now. Okay, yesterday I explained about LADM and the revision which is ongoing. So these last 2 weeks you will be working first of all with the basic version of LADM. And next it will be about, say, some of the new extensions. So you are asked to develop an own country profile covering the basic classes like party, RRR, BEA unit, spatial units, and make that suitable for a specific country. And you should be able, how to use the standards, the ISO standards as a basis. And then next you will go in depth into one of the 3 topics. They are not yet standards, they're part of the revision. You could choose from marine space georegulation, you could choose for valuation information, or you could go for the spatial plan information. So the goal is to investigate in more detail what is included in the land administration of a specific country, what is already today included, and relate this to the concepts defined in the ISO standard, LADM 19152. And the second half is then exploring an extension, and it's up to you, what extension you choose, and also make this extension suitable for the country. So the reporting of the last 2 weeks is mainly documenting the UML country profile. And the country profile itself will be UML class diagrams. And in the report, you should not just show the final result, but also discuss your considerations. What were the alternatives? Why did you select a certain option? And the same for the addition. As usual, it is a pass or fail evaluation. So try to be original, try to explain clearly and coherently your solution. And first give an overview of the main design decisions, and then go into detail in some important aspects. For many countries, there has already been a country profile developed. We have seen in literature already, say, for 40 different countries, a country profile. If your country of choice is already by somebody else modeled, then it's no problem to use it again at the country, but try to improve it and make clear how you improved it. Okay, after 1 week, so that is next week, Wednesday, there is the presentation from your side, the short presentation. Remember, 5 minutes followed by discussion and feedback. And note that that is a different time. So from 11 to 12 Wednesday morning. That is because in the afternoon I have to be in a PhD defense at Utrecht University. Therefore, it's also Zoom. Otherwise, I cannot make the travel in time. I hope that the normal lecture on Tuesday next week will be live again. So the COVID is getting less. So I hope to be recovered next week, Tuesday. But despite this, your presentations on Wednesday will be online, and then you get feedback from your peers and from the staff. Okay, the main tool to be used is a UML editor. And yeah, for example, Enterprise Architect is really used a lot by people working in ISO and involved in modeling. All the models are not included in standards of ISO TC211 are also available online, so you don't have to redraw them. You can just use them as developed by the creators of the standard. And so this is a special group that is working on maintaining this collection of models. They're called the Harmonized Model Maintenance Group. And if you go to this GitHub page, you will find instructions how to get the UML model. And if you use Enterprise Architect, the best way is to use the Enterprise Architect project file or the EAP, the latest version. And you will find LIDM over there. Okay, the groups for assignment number 4 are shown here. Again, different combinations, different pairs. I hope this is also what you see at your sites in Brightspace. If not, let me know. Okay, this is the assignment, a two-part assignment. First, make a basic country profile, and next, add one of the new options. And yeah, I would suggest that you reuse one of your earlier explored countries. So in assignment 1, you all were investigating land administration in a country of choice, looking at the legal setting, looking at the institutions involved, looking at the systems, what is available, what is online, what is digital. Okay, it's recommended to continue with this knowledge and continue with one of these countries. Of course, you are now with different pairs. And so you have to choose which one you take, which of the countries. But it's not mandatory. So if for some reason you now want to do another country, you are free to do so and present that next week. This slide was more or less shown also yesterday, so I'm not going to repeat it, but this is recommended methodology how to develop such a country profile. And I must say, at the third phase, which is testing, your proposed country profile is too much effort to be included in these 2 weeks. So you don't have to collect real data, you don't have to implement it in the database or make a visualization system. But I would recommend that you do step 3B, and that is creating instance levels diagram in the LIDM country profile and showing at least, say, 3 or 4 typical registration cases, how they will be represented in the model. Okay, then let's have a look at the first part. Good to note that the standard IS 19152 of 2012 is online in Brightspace. I hope you can see it over there with the assignment. And so there's all the explanation next to what is covered in the presentation or in the lecture earlier. So, okay, what to do? Select the country of choice for this assignment. Try to figure out, and I think this is partially overlapping what you already did in assignment 1, is which organizations are responsible for maintaining which part of the data. For example, is there a separate land registry? Is there a separate cadastre for the spatial data? Is there a spatial planning authority? Is there a different organization for managing the buildings, for the land. Every country has the different organizational structure. So after this initial inventory, describe the scope of what is currently covered in that country in the land administration system. And yeah, with the scope and the knowledge of the existing system, develop a basic country profile by somehow relating the content of a country in the terminology of the LRDM core model, so the party, the administrative, and the spatial packages. It is nice if in the country profile you color code which organization is responsible for which information or which classes. And if you look back in the presentation of Abdullah Kara 2 weeks ago, where he did give the example of Saudi Arabia, where there were 3 or 4 different organizations, authorities, and it is really giving a lot of insights who is responsible for what and how that's connected. So mapping the existing, or mapping the classes in your country profile representing the existing land administration system, and show how that is related to LRDM. And finally, make a number of instance level diagrams. And okay, that's it for the first part. And the second part, and maybe that's also the second week, you have the optional choice of extension and marine space georegulation. So it would not make sense for Switzerland, for example. But if you select Greece or another country next to the sea or ocean, that makes sense. Valuation information, probably that makes sense for every country in the world, except, for example, in Saudi Arabia, where people do not pay property tax, and there is not so much need for valuation. But there may be other reasons for valuation than taxation. That will be explained also by Abdullah Kara later today. Or the third option, spatial plan information. How does this fit in the new LRDM part number 5, close to creating legal spaces after the planning result has produced a detailed plan, and maybe also include the permitting over here. So browse through these newly proposed parts. A warning, these are not standards, they are just working documents. I have put again also the PDFs of these 3 parts on Brightspace next to the assignment. Think back of what you know about the country you are studying and select, according to your opinion and your interest, what is most urgent to further study, and then extend the country profile and with the new relevant classes for covering this extension. This is not an isolated activity, so the extended model should fit to the existing model, and so explain how the core model and the added part fit together. That's it. I just want to ask the students, can you see the assignment well online in Brightspace? If not, let me know during the lecture with a chat. Marike, you can see it in Brightspace? You switched on your camera, so.
Yeah, I'm opening it now to see if it works.
Yeah, so please check in week 7, assignment 4, for the assignment. Should be a bunch of PDFs, one with the assignment document, the other with the standards or the proposed standards. And I think I also added the land use policy paper about the methodology to create a country profile. And so it's recommended to read that carefully first. I see you nodding, Marika, so that's positive. Okay, then I would like to introduce our guest lecturer of this afternoon, Abdullah Kara. Let me give you a little bit of background. A number of years ago, I did meet Abdullah Kara in a conference in Istanbul. He was working on his PhD, and the PhD was valuation information. And he had the idea, okay, maybe this could be part of the LRDM revision. Abdullah worked super hard on his PhD research. He was also then visiting Delft for 1 year. It was now about 3-4 years ago. He did go back to Turkey, Istanbul, Yildiz Technical University, completed the thesis, defended it, and then he was invited to be postdoc at TU Delft, where he started last year as postdoc after obtaining the PhD degree. And his main work research is making sure that the revision of LRDM is going correct, which is quite a balancing act with all the different parts. Where are the splits between the parts, and following the ISO procedures. But of course, main attention is his own new model, the valuation information model, which is now known as part number 4. Okay, after this introduction, I would like to ask Abdullah, try sharing the screen and go ahead with your guest lecture. Yes, looks good.
Yeah, thank you for the nice introduction, Professor. Yeah, today I will try to introduce the new extension of LADM, the valuation information, and its application to its implementation, database implementation, and web-based 3D visualization implementation of the valuation information extension of the LADM. My presentation will consist of 4 parts. The first part, I will try to introduce land administration and valuation, and in the second section, I will try to tell how the LADM valuation information model is developed and the content of the LADM valuation information model. In the third section, I will try to introduce the country profiles of LADM valuation information model. I will specifically focus on the Netherlands country profile of the model, and I will show some examples, some other country profiles. And the last section of the presentation I will focus on the 3D aspects in the property valuation. This will include both 3D visualization, 3D web-based visualization, and producing using 3D datasets and GIS analysis to produce some data to better estimate the property values. Yeah. I suppose you will see this definition many times. The land administration is about the property ownership, value, and land use. Until 2012, there was no domain-specific standards that captures the semantics of land administration. In 2012, land administration domain model is published as an ISO standard. This version of the LADM is focused on the right responsibilities and restrictions affecting land and the geometrical components thereof. So in other words, this first edition focus on the land tenure aspects of the land administration. But as you know, ISO standards is subject to systematic revision in every 6 years. So ISO LADM revision is started in 2018. In 2019, in 48th plenary meeting of ISO TC211, it was decided that the LADM edition 2 will be designed as a multi-part standard, and one of the part of this multi-part standard is valuation information, part 4. So, what is valuation information? Actually, many international organizations make a statement in their recent publications to property valuation information. For example, in the New Urban Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, it is explicitly stated that the valuation registries, land and housing price records are required, and valuation registries should be developed. Land and housing price records should be needed to assess change in values. So you should record valuation information, valuation dates, transaction prices in the valuation registries. The United Nations explicitly stated that they will support the local governments to create local inventories to record valuation information. However, the information management aspects of valuation was not addressed in research and standardization. In LADM edition 1, it's focused on the land tenure aspects, but it excludes the valuation part. In fact, there are many standards related to valuation information. The first set of standards is valuation standards. These standards are basically focused on the procedural aspects of the valuation. For example, International Valuation Standard Council publish annually a red book, which is about the valuation procedures, valuation approaches, which approach should be used, sales comparison, cost approach, and valuers which data sets can be used in valuation practices. And these standards also include some ethic rules that valuers should follow. The similar other standardization organization is the European Groups of Valuers of Association. This association is published European Valuation Standards. These standards is called Blue Book. Standards is also includes some definitions, for example, value definitions. How can the market value can be defined? How can the future value can be defined? Tax value can be defined. Some definitions are included in the standards. And the last organization is the International Association of Assessing Officers. This organization is mostly focused on the technical aspects of the valuation processes. So it defines which steps should be taken to value the properties, which data can be used, which mathematical models should be developed, and after you value the property, to assess its correctness, which ratio studies can be used. This International Association of Assessing Officers focused on that kind of technical aspects of the valuation. But all these three standards could not provide us a information model that can be used to manage the property valuation information. The other set of standards, area and volume measurement standards. One of the most important characteristics of property in property valuation is area and volumes of the properties. For example, these standards specifies the areas and volumes in building and building parts. So they define what is total floor area, gross floor area, what is net floor area. And these areas are really important in property valuation practices. They are used in all kinds of mathematical models. I would like to mention the International Property Measurement Standards. This is a joint organization that every valuation organization supports. For example, when the International Property Measurement Standards was developing, the ISO, the FIG, the World Bank is supported this organization. And they will be dominant in property area and volume measurements in future. The last set of standards, the geographic information standards. The most fundamental data in property valuation is right, restrictions and responsibilities over properties, and the land administration domain model is the only standard that focuses on the RRR of the properties. Actually, the OGC's land infra standard also includes some ownership data, some rights information, but not as detailed as LADM. So we can use, but LADM do not include all the data that we are required in the valuation activities, valuation processes. For example, the building materials, building age are not included in the LADM. So we can obtain this kind of data from the other standards. For example, inspired data specification on building can be used to obtain these data sets, buildings, physical building characteristics. And also OGC STGML can be used to obtain physical building characteristics, same as the ISO IFC BIM standards. So our main problem is that despite the existence of several valuation related standards, there is no international accepted information model that defines the semantics of valuation registries, inventories. And evaluation information model is required because we need a common basis to communicate better, or we need a common basis to develop some valuation registries, inventories, or databases. So we decided to restrict our study to all kind of administrative valuations, not this model, LADM valuation information model is not, does not include private valuations, but includes all stages of administrative valuations, both input and output data used and produced in the valuation processes. And since the most promising standard, the only standard that details the right restriction and responsibilities LADM, we decided to extend LADM with new classes, attributes, and relationships. This is the, so I will try to tell how we developed the LADM valuation information model and the content of the LADM valuation information model. We developed the LADM valuation information model in 4 stages. In the first stage, we identified the valuation domain semantics. In the second stage, we identify the country applications. In stage 3, we evaluate the existing geographical information standards, to what extent we can use those standards to develop the valuation information model. And fourth stage, we develop the information models. So I will give more detailed information about the stages. In the first stage, immovable property valuation thesaurus was developed to reveal the core semantics of valuation domain. To develop this thesaurus, we investigate all the international valuation standards. For example, IVCG, TEGOA, and IAO standards were investigated. Main text and glossaries of these standards were searched, and 139 terms were derived. And we grouped these terms in some main groups. We defined 5 groups. The first group is valuers, the second group is value, the valuation method, valuation activity, and the valuation object. For example, valuer can be an assessor, internal valuer, external valuer, and qualified valuer. These different kinds of valuer have some different definitions. We derived these definitions also from these international valuation standards. For the value section, there are different value types. For example, tax value, market value, use value, investment value. These terms are also derived from the international standards, and we developed and we encoded this international property valuation thesaurus in using ESCOs. So we have these 5 top concepts: valuer, value, valuation record, valuation activity, and valuation object. And for every term, we define some narrower and broader concepts, some alternative labels, and the definition of the term. So we formally define the relationship between the terms of valuation information in the first stage. In the second stage, we try to identify the country applications. The questionnaire was distributed to FIG Commission 7, Land Administration and Cadastre, and the FIG Commission 9 to Real Estate Valuation delegates to obtain the to reveal the commonalities and differences among valuation systems. The questionnaire consists of 3 sections. The first section is about the property valuation system. The second part is about the mass appraisal procedures in different countries, and the third section is about the single individual property valuation procedures in countries. 24 responses from 23 countries were received, and they are all available on that iso.ladm.org websites. Some results of the questionnaire is like that. For example, we asked the countries which organization is responsible for valuation of properties. There are different organizations responsible in different countries. For example, municipalities are responsible in Turkey and Netherlands. For example, Minister of Finance and Taxation is responsible for valuation in Croatia, in Denmark. Surveying and cadastral authorities are responsible for valuation in Slovenia, Cyprus, Argentina, Colombia, and Spain. The second question we asked is which type of value is used by the responsible organization for property taxation. There are different type of values are used in different countries. For example, in the Netherlands, they use loss value, which is equal to market value. In Turkey, we use the tax value. They have different definition. That the tax value and the market value is different than each other. Another question we ask, which public registry data sets are used in property valuation processes? Most of the countries stated that they use cadastral data sets, land register data sets, land use plans, and some other types of inventories. For example, in the Netherlands, base register for inhabitants and companies are used in property valuation. They are related to property value. This base register is related to the valuation registry in the Netherlands. Another question we asked is, which type of methods is used to collect market data for valuation? For example, in some countries, field investigation done to collect valuation information. Some countries stated that only public registry is used to value the properties. And some countries stated that declaration of owners are used as main data source for valuation activities. Another question we asked is there any special valuation database for storing data sets used and produced with valuation procedures? Most of the countries say yes, we have some special database for the valuation in national level. In some countries like Turkey, Bolivia, Costa Rica, and South Korea, they have some municipal level valuation databases. And in some countries, mostly in South Africa, Argentina, Brazil, they have no valuation databases. The second part of the questionnaire is about the mass appraisal system. In some countries, they have mass appraisal system, and the mass appraisal is used to value all the properties that have similar function in a specific area, for example, in a municipality. So this is a more mass appraisal is a more it's a cheap method, and it is you can save time if you use mass valuation. Most of the countries use mass valuation to value the properties. For example, in the Netherlands, mass valuation is used to determine those values, the market values. And Croatia, Macedonia, Turkey, United Kingdom is not use mass valuation to determine property values. Most of the countries are used commercial software to in mass appraisal. There are different type of models is used in different countries. For example, in Cyprus, additive model used. The multiplicative model is used in Cyprus, Argentina, Brazil, India, and Latvia. The hybrid model consists of additive model and the multiplicative model. Hybrid model used in Slovenia, and other type of models, for example, clustering used in the Netherlands. The other question we ask, in mass appraisal system applied in your country have a performance analysis stage. For example, ratio study is used in the mass valuation. Some countries say yes, some countries say no. For example, in the Netherlands, some type of ratio study is used to analyze the performance. I will touch which type of ratio study is used in the Netherlands in the next slides. And the third and the last part of the questionnaire was about the individual property valuation. So we used which type of valuation method is used in your country. Countries mostly answer the question with three approaches: sales comparison, cost approach, and income approach. And the other question we ask, which kind of improvement characteristics, building units characteristics are taken into account for single and mass appraisal. And the mostly used characteristics are area, building area, condominium unit area, building age, construction material, construction quality, construction type, number of rooms, amenities of the building, and the doors and windows number in Macedonia and Bolivia. The tax value of the properties are determined using the number of window and door in the Macedonia and Bolivia. In the third stage, we investigate the geographical information standards. We investigate LADM. How can we extend the LADM with valuation information? We investigate land infra. How can we utilize the land infra's definitions to extend LADM for valuation purposes? We investigate inspire data specifications on building and cadastral parcels. How can we drive some building characteristics for valuation from the inspired data specification on building, and which cadastral parcel characteristics can be derived for the extension. In section 3, we also determine the main property characteristics commonly used in the valuation processes. We create this table using the questionnaire results and in the first stage, we created a thesaurus. We created this table also using this thesaurus information. So the main characteristics used for the land parcel valuation is the parcel area, topography, land use, private law restrictions, and the public law restrictions. For the improvements, building size, building age, effective age, construction materials, construction quality are important in most of the countries. And for the locational characteristics, neighborhood characteristics, risk of natural disasters, closeness to point of interest, closeness to school or public transport, some external nuances, for example, airport noise, heavy traffic, and the view is used as locational characteristics in valuation processes. So we investigate which classes can be used in different standards. For example, for the building, we can use, for the parcel, we can use LA spatial units. We can also use the land parcel from land infra. For the building, we can use LA spatial units and external physical building units and legal space building units from LADM. Secondly, we investigate the land characteristics, area, land value, easement, public restrictions, and topography. As you can see, most of these land characteristics are included in LADM and land infra. Third, we investigate the improvement characteristics, building and building units characteristics. As you can see, effective age, number of stories, construction materials are not included in the LADM because LADM is not about the physical aspects of the buildings, but these information can be obtained from the Inspire building data specification or the STGML data specification. So our main thing is maximally reuse the existing standards to extend LADM for the valuation purposes. So we maximally reuse the Inspire building data specification, Landlifter specification, and STGML specification. I know you saw this slide yesterday. In the LADM valuation information model, we have 10 classes and 7 data types and 19 code list. We developed this model based on the earlier studies, the immovable property valuation thesaurus, the questionnaire, and the geographical data standards investigation. So we create 10 classes. One is valuation. I will tell this, I will give information about this class in these classes in detail in the later slides. We have valuation, valuation class for the input and output data in valuation processes, mass appraisal to specify mass appraisal related information, for example, which statistical method used, which analysis type used. Valuation unit is used to represent basic valuation units. Valuation unit group to cluster the valuation units according to zones or use types of properties. Special unit represents the basic cadastral parcels or sub-parcels that are subject to property valuation. Building and condominium unit represents the physical aspects of building and building parts that are used in the valuation processes. Transaction prices such as selling prices or rent prices, which is used to value the properties. In this class, we define the information content of transaction contracts and declarations provided by parties, and sale statistics to represent the information related to price statistics produced through the analysis of sale prices or valuation activities. And lastly, we have the valuation source to include source of valuations, such as to represent the source of valuations, such as valuation reports and declaration documents. So I will try to give more detailed information about these classes.
Abdullah, maybe this is a good moment before you go into detail of the classes to have a short break. And maybe also good moment now for students to ask any question to Abdullah about the first part. If not, okay, let's have a short break now and then be back at 2:45. So 10 minutes break to get a tea or do something else, and then with a refreshed mind we continue